Hello. Well, Thornton,
Yeah.
there's a lot of people talking on there. Oh, hello. Who's got their microphone on?
Want to come in? Yeah.
That must be Tom and John Drysdale. Let's just mute them. Hello and welcome to the show. We, of course, shall we say, are starting straight away on this. We're just going to bring the live stream online. Hopefully, we can do that in 2 seconds. Let's just get this up. Once again, it is the usual when we talk about the live stream. Once again, I failed to do it. So everybody just bear with me a second while I just type this in so that we can go live. Boom, 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 boom. Boom, 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 boom. Do, 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 do. Do, 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 do. There we go. That one. And finally, oh dear. I always forget to do this, don't I? Always forget to do this. Right. Let's get that on. And let's hit the go live. There we go. Right. That should come up any second now, and we should be able to start with the live stream show. Boom, 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 boom. Hello and welcome to warrenthornton.com. If you like what we do here, we show you the first hour free. Come across warrenthornton.com. We can show you videos we're not allowed to show you anywhere else, or we can't get away with showing you anywhere else. Let's get right into the show right from the word go, because we've a lot to get through tonight and there's a lot to be spoken about. So the very first thing we are going to talk about, of course, is these things, which are, of course, the Tomahawk missiles. Now, there's a lot of nonsense that has been spoken about the Tomahawk missiles. So today I contacted our friend, who is a good pal, shall we say, in Pentagon circles, and very close to people at the top of the hill, which, of course, is where you want to get all the best information if you can. So let's get into it. What is the score with the Tomahawks? What is the score with all the missiles? Oh, you will have heard of the Tomahawk missile being one of these very, very long-range missiles that can strike absolutely anywhere. And, of course, there is something that we need to share with you right off the bat. Any medium to long-range missile that is used by another country has to have the all clear from America. People will go, no, that's not true. It is absolutely true. And there is something called the Monroe Doctrine. Okay. The Monroe Doctrine is something that you may not know too much about. But the Monroe Doctrine was basically done for a different war. But the whole idea is that it is used here in this day and age. And the reason it's used in this day and age is they do not want, nor do they, shall we say, like the idea that anybody in the Western Hemisphere can fire any rockets whatsoever without their say-so. That's the truth. You may not like it. You may think it's rubbish. It's not rubbish. Just try firing. Try firing if you can. A Storm Shadow. Try firing a Scout missile. Try firing a Taurus. Try firing any long-range or medium missile without America's say-so. Okay? They have the codes, the coordinates, the telemetry. Okay, and they can also give a yay or nay to what they're going to hit. Okay, and that's just the way it is. Now, nobody in the Western Hemisphere fires a medium range, in other words, something like Storm Shadow, or a long range like a Tomahawk, without the USA approving that strike. That includes HIMARS. Okay. People go, oh, well, the Ukrainians have got their own. It's nonsense. All right. You will have heard about the Krims 2, which, of course, is meant to be the Sapsan missile. Now, you're being absolutely fed a load of nonsense here, because the long-range missile, the very long-range missile that they're calling the Sapsan, is actually a Taurus. It's just modified. And once again, it cannot be shot without help to do that. Now, very, very simply, that's a medium-range missile. It's not a long-range missile. and that can be blown, and in fact, can be blown up quite easily and quite quickly, and has been. The factory, of course, the Russians hit, which was literally making these. That's why Mertz was going absolutely crazy at the time, because at the end of the day, it's his factory, and of course, many of the pieces for that are made with Saab and various other companies as well. So that's that cleared up. The Tomahawk missiles cannot be fired. The only people who can fire them are the people who have the codes and the telemetry, and they are literally restricted to all Americans and very few Americans at that as well. Okay. So people like the Navy, admirals will have the codes and stuff like that. Loads and loads of people are involved in the decision making when it comes to firing these rockets. So let's just get that out of the way straight away. Now, you will have heard about the Flamingo. Okay. Now, the Flamingo is this fantastic weapon that literally the Ukrainians have, that can fire long range, can hit any target, can pummel Moscow. It's all rubbish, utter nonsense. And let me tell you why it is absolute nonsense. First of all, it is a missile that they've taken and just adapted. So this is very much a non-starter. They do not have the money to build it, and nobody else wants to build it. It is slow, it is clunky, and it is very, very easy to knock out of the sky. Now, I would ask you to talk a question here. I'm going to ask you a question very, very simply. Why on earth would the Ukrainians want Tomahawks if they have a missile that they say can travel almost double the distance of a Tomahawk at speeds that are relatively, or saying that speeds that are relatively the same? It's because it's nonsense. They've tested 7 of these so far. Not one of them has made it through the flight. Okay, every single one have got an absolutely perfect record of 100% crashes with these missiles. They are absolutely useless and no good. And lots and lots of people will turn around and go, that's not true, that's not true. It is true, and it's absolutely factual. Go and look for yourself. In actual fact, the Ukrainians are up in arms about this, and so are the rest of the West, because they're going, where's the money gone for these? They're saying you can't build any more of these. Literally this. Now, this is very, very straightforward. You will, of course, I'll just break off on what I'm saying for a minute to let you know that at the moment we have a problem with the Zoom. And if it comes up, just bear with it for a day, because we will get it fixed. But if it's spoiling your shall we say, watching the show, please feel free. We will do what we can about it. But as it is at the moment, while I'm live on air, we can't do anything about it. So very, very simply, getting back to what I was saying, these missiles, or these long-range missiles, not very good at all. Okay, and they're of no use whatsoever on the theatre of battle. So the nonsense that they're going to come out with, and they're going to tell you, is absolutely that, complete and utter nonsense. Okay, just so you're aware. I'm just going to mute the microphones there. We do have a bit of a problem tonight with the Zoom. We are not quite sure what's going wrong with it, but bear with us. Let's get into some of this then, because this is something that we need to have a chat about. Nilis.
Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. Can you? Right. Sorry. Yeah, I was getting used to the new controls. Yeah. There are two views about the Tomahawks. Like
Yes.
Alex Kapora was saying yesterday, the Ukrainians have definitely got them, and Scott Ritter was saying they'll never give them to them because it will mean nuclear war.
Yes.
Yeah.
They will not give them to them. And even if they did give them to them, Nilis, they can't fire them without the Americans say so. And then they can't fire them at any target without the Americans say so. So it is, you know, everybody's getting, oh, you know, they're getting Tomahawks. They're not. And even if they did, they're only going to fire them where the Americans tell them they can fire them, because otherwise they're not going to give them the telemetry to do so. And this so-called, you know, there's lots of people out there saying it's a wonder rocket, and they've got this wonder rocket called the Flamingo. No, they haven't. It's not a wonder rocket. It's a complete piece of junk. and it's a waste of time. But of course, that's not what we're going to hear in the West, Nillis.
Also, Kellogg was saying, the Russians are always putting red lines down, but we're always crossing them, and they won't react if we do tomahawks on.
That's a hell of a gamble to take, isn't it? Let's have a listen to Kellogg actually saying what he's saying here.
To start with, this is the clarifier. I do not speak for the President of the United States, simply because he speaks for himself quite clearly, and he is the one who sets the policy of the United States of America, not Keith Kellogg. Let me start at the back and move my way forward. You asked about the comment about the Tomahawk missiles. The Tomahawk is a very advanced missile system in the United States. It's probably one of our high-end systems. You always read about it when we do a military strike somewhere in the world. It's generally led off by a Tomahawk missile strike. From what I understand, and I was not in the meeting, from what I understand, reading the public reports, is that issue of Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine was brought up by President Zelensky to President Trump at the UN General Assembly last week in New York City. There's been no comment either yes it's going to happen or no it's going to happen. The acknowledgement from, again, in the public reports is they were asked for. That is obviously something that has been picked up by the world press, obviously picked up by the Russians as well, simply because of the capability and the capacity of the weapon system. The weapon system is, in fact, by itself, to me, it's a game changer, only because how good it is, and somebody who's seen it used multiple times in multiple conflicts. So that's probably the biggest issue that came out of UNGA in the bilateral discussions that President Zelensky and President Trump had. By the way, I have to add this because it's a secondary comment, but it's important as well. The other meeting that occurred there, and I say this because I want to make sure it's understood, is the meeting between our First Lady, Melania Trump, and Mrs. Zelenska, Ilana, when they talked about the children, the 19,500 children that are numbered in The Hague. They've got them captured and bringing them home. Those are two big events that occurred as well. When it comes to the use of the weapon systems on the strikes, is President Trump. I just use his public comments that he's out there. In those comments, you can read about what he said about striking deep and about sanctuaries on what's happening, and those speak for themselves. And I let him do that. That's his call. So it's going to be whatever he makes the final decision as Commander-in-Chief. What's going to be. But I think the biggest news item is the one that you mentioned, was another advanced weapon systems that at least has been asked for, with absolutely no decision being made at all.
So there we go. That was him talking about the Tomahawk. And there's something else that he's been coming out as well.
A lot more.
Like father, like daughter, I would say, which is absolutely incredible when it comes to this guy. Very, very simply, let's get into what he had to say on this.
He cannot overpower NATO. He cannot overpower the West. He just can't. He does not have the capacity to do it. I have talked to senior leaders in Washington, D.C., and I've been asked that very question. Can Russia win this war? I said, no, they can't. They do not have the capability to win the war after 3 years.
There we are. Keith Kellogg in all his glory. Absolute superstar. Not. We've got people who want to talk on this. Barry Evans is one of them. Barry?
Yeah. I mean, he's the best comedian I've heard in a long time. But nobody's laughing except me. Yeah, I mean,
He is
Russia cannot win this war. Question, Keith. Why are they winning this war?
Yes. It's one of them, they're fighting with shovels. It's nonsense again, isn't it? Which, of course, is absolutely useless. Nillis?
Well, I think if it came to a full-blown war with Russia and the West, China and countries like North Korea wouldn't let Russia fall, because if Russia fell, they would be the next ones on the list, wouldn't it? So they would, they would do everything that they could with military equipment and maybe even personnel.
Yes, absolutely crazy, isn't it? And we'll be getting into some more of that in a while. And I've got to say, Nicholas, you're absolutely right when it comes to some of the nonsense that they're coming out with there. It is beyond the pale. Eric Jones wanted to have a word. Eric?
Yeah, a lot of U.S. media outlets are pushing the war thing. They're saying it's inevitable. We're going to go to war with Russia, and I'm like, wow, it's pretty dystopian, actually.
It does seem a very crazy thing, doesn't it? And of course, we all know who his daughter is. So he just wants more money, should we say, for her fun and games would be my guess on that one. Never let a good grift go to waste. Mark's iPhone 2.
Not on me, Warren.
Yeah,
Oh.
it is. So that'd be Mark Onza. We'll rename you while you're doing that. Mark.
Warren, question's quite simple. When is this media going to start and have a bit of respect for Russia and Western governments? Because without a bit of respect and some fair, and they're not going to realise there's more money in peace and trade than there is in these wars.
I totally agree with you.
What's your prediction?
My prediction is that they are more than happy to keep stoking the flames. Now, I've said this time and time again. They are there to keep Russia busy while they get on with regime change elsewhere. It's a really, really straightforward thing for me that they're there to let that happen and to get Europe to carry the ball. I did say ages ago that they would walk away from this and leave Europe holding the bag. That's exactly what they're doing. And there's lots and lots of people who turn around and say, oh, I think that there's a problem here, there's a problem there. There isn't a problem. There's no problem with America. America are quite happy for this to go along. If they eventually have got to fund it all, they'll fund it because they funded it at the start. But the benefits far outweigh. They can get on with it in Syria. They can get on with it in Nepal. They'll be going for Pakistan. Will be one of the ones that they go for next. They've got the Philippines and Japan and Australia, and of course now with Nepal, something to irritate the Chinese, for the Chinese to keep an eye on, while they carry on in various theatres of the world, overthrowing governments. They've already done it. They're going, Venezuela will be one of the ones that they'd like to get a regime change there. And of course, they're going back for another go at Iran. Nicholas.
Well, I think they're pushing for this war because they want to carry on with their globalist agenda, and that's one of the ways they can do it. For example, after the First World War, they got the League of Nations, which was the first time that the world had come together. After the Second World War, they got the United Nations. They want to fulfill this global agenda, but they're going to lose the war, and so that won't get carried out. But on the other hand, the West is so corrupt that they can't compete with Russia or China in industrial terms, and the only thing they can do is try to weaken them and press them with military means. I don't think they can do that now. Yeah. And for example, as you were saying, Warren, it costs Russia $2,000 to make a artillery shell, where the NATO shell costs $45,000, which is an incredible, one shell. Is that 45? Yeah, that's an incredible figure, isn't it?
It's a lot of money, isn't it? But what you have to remember is, Nicholas, everybody's going to have their cut. The banks have got to make their slice. The arms dealers obviously want to make a bit. The middleman wants to make a bit. The transportation people want to make a bit. And of course, the people on the receiving end, the Ukrainians, want to make a slice as well.
That's what I mean. It's that China reins back their oligarchs. For example, he was showing us that the Chinese agriculture minister is about to be executed, and Putin did the same. We won't do it because our industries are so much tied up with the world banking system, especially when we see these companies like BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street taking over everything, and the government aims to take over agricultural land and housing now, and they're going to take over the food. So basically, they're getting as a Christian, I would say they're getting us ready for Antichrist, where you can say everything is bought and sold, and you build by that, and by that,
Yeah,
if you have the mark or the digital ID, but that
yes,
digital ID is going to be implanted on you eventually.
yes. Well, we'll talk about that a little later on in the show. But yeah, that is something that is going to be a pain in the backside. Sean Murphy.
Well, Warren, I believe that the US are not going to carry on with Ukraine. Quite straightforward is that they are very committed to different theatres of war at the moment,
They are.
and if they continue in Ukraine or commit troops or aircraft, etc., to Ukraine, they are going to be very, very overcommitted worldwide.
Yes.
And I think they are wise enough to realise that and see that.
Yeah. I mean, people asked me this today. They turned around and said, "Well, surely, if Putin didn't see that they were just there to extend Russia and not to defeat them, then of course there shouldn't be a problem." And you're talking absolute rubbish. Um, and the problem that we have, of course, and it is a problem, a major problem, is that we get a total lunatic in charge, because once somebody from Europe now is going to take over this project, they're sort of looking at Poland, they're looking at Callas, they're looking at von der Leyen, they're looking at Macron, Starmer, Merz was the front runner a while ago, and they're all starting to back away from it now, because before, when they thought the Americans were fully invested in this, they were all out there going, me, I should be the number one. And that's simply not happening. Barry, you've got your mic open. Oh, no, he's closing. Barry's iPad, Barry Brackenbridge. No. Barry, who else wanted to talk? Lee Williams.
Yeah, a quick one. So it's a case that they've been doing it in Ukraine, then it's obviously Gaza, then it's Syria. So the next one, like we're at a verge of thinking about this, it's going to be in Iran. So when's it actually going to stop? When they hever to the fact that it was like Germany spreading around the world and they couldn't do it, if you know what I'm saying, in the way of the Americans.
Yes, you just get this where the lunacy is going to happen, isn't it? And we're not going to have. How can I put this the best way? We've just got a ton of people who are going to cause a major problem for us down the road. There's not one of them can. How can I put this as nicely as possible? There's not one of them can carry this fight. Not one. Would you trust? Are you going to go to war for Merz? Are you going to go to war for Starmer? Are you going to go to war for any of these European leaders? Absolutely nobody is. So they're not going to get anybody to fight. So they've got to get people like Donald Tusk. And of course, Tusk has got Nariki, who's totally against this war. So you're going to find nothing there. You've got Tusk coming out, or Tusk, as they call him, coming out and saying all this stuff. And none of it is making any sense. Even the Poles, and the Poles have a great history of hating Russia. They're going, we don't want to borrow this war. Barry Evans.
Yeah. The thing that gets me, America pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing. They're going to fall flat on their backside in the end, because they're going to do exactly what Hitler did. Trump doesn't want to do that, I don't think. But he's got the CIA, and the CIA are uncontrollable. And like you showed the other day, I saw they don't care about democracy. They don't care about all sorts of. I mean, if they don't care about democracy, what's all this bullshit they keep talking about with democracy? They just keep coming out with all this rhetoric all the time, and it means nothing. And the thing is, we've got North Korea, quite a powerhouse. We got China, an absolute powerhouse, and we got Russia, which is another absolute powerhouse. Put those three together, and the rest of the world might as well run away because USA cannot take on China. They certainly can't take on Russia because the weapons they've got are nowhere near as good as Russian weapons. No matter what Trump says, he can say we got the best weapons in the world. You can talk a good anything, but the reality is entirely opposite to what he's saying. The Americans do not have the best weapons in the world. The Chinese and the Russians and the North Koreans have some really fantastic weapons, as you pointed out.
Yes.
So you know, how are America going to achieve anything? If they have a go at Iran, I wouldn't be at all surprised, like you said, if Putin's got anything about the material, and say, okay, we'll sell them a nuke or two, or sell them these other ones. Like you say, the Americans and the Israelis are going to go absolutely crazy over it. They're going to say, "Oh, you can't do things like that." Well, right, and yet you can, but we can't. There's one rule for one and another rule for the other.
I literally turn around and say, right, I'll sell you a Resnick. It's not a problem at all. What I'd actually do is turn around and say, look, we haven't decided whether to give a Resnicks to Iran yet. Watch them have a meltdown. I tell you what, they'd stop that nonsense straight away. Talking of nonsense, have a look at this.
Не було такого аварійна ситуація на Запорізькій атомній станції. Ситуація критична. Через російські обстріли станція відключена від живлення, від електромережі. Забезпечується електрикою від дизель-генераторів. Це надзвичайно. Генератори і станція не розраховані на таке і ніколи не працювали в такому режимі так довго. І вже у нас є інформація, що один з генераторів вийшов з ладу. І саме росіяни через обстріли перешкоджають ремонту ліній електромережі до станції та відновленню базової безпеки. І це загроза для всіх, абсолютно.
So there we go. That is Volodymyr Zelensky trying to tell you that over the where the pipelines have been blown, where various things have been blown up that feed power to the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant, that for the last God knows how long, they've actually been bombing their own nuclear power station as to try and get Ukraine in trouble. Really, that is your best play. Sean Murphy.
Well, we all know, Warren, that it's not Russia who's been bombarding the Zaporizhia nuclear power station. We all know that it's Ukraine that's been doing it. And it doesn't matter what he says. We know the truth. And the truth is, it's Ukraine that has been bombarding that power station and not Russia. Why would Russia want to bombard their own power station?
Yeah, exactly that. Somebody's just come in there with their mic open. Who was that? It was Barry's iPad again. Yeah, so very, very simply, if you are going to come on the mic, because settings are changed for tonight, if you are going to come on the mic, please make sure you haven't got any background noise going on. Thank you very much. Yeah, so you are absolutely right that the nonsense that is happening at the moment is beyond belief. And of course, they're trying to get you to believe that the nuclear power plant, of course, the IAEA were actually there when Ukraine were bombing them. So God knows what we're going to talk about. They have actually killed somebody fairly important in the State Duma, should we say, which is pretty much like their council. They used a car bomb to the Ukrainians, the SBU, inside of Russia. Have a look at this. Right, there we go. That is literally what Ukraine are doing at the moment. Once again, keep wrapping up or ramping up their terror campaign, which is something that they do quite often. And of course, it may be the reason for this getting hit. Now this is a scam center. Now there is a bit of a problem. People going, oh, this is a normal building. It's not. What they've been using is this center has literally been used to scam money from Russian old ladies and stuff like that to go into the union coffers. What's even worse? So basically what you've got there is this scam call center, which was literally getting all the money from this, should we say, Russian old ladies and maybe people who aren't so smart, and using it to forward the Ukraine war effort. Russia found it, found out where it was, and they sent a grand drone to blow it to Kingdom Come. Can't say when it comes to, I'm not just saying this because it's them. I think all call centers maybe should get that sort of treatment. There is some more stuff that we need to talk about when it comes to all the things that are going on here, because it is the lunacy, of course, that keeps coming out, and Orban has addressed some of this lunacy. Let's have a listen to what he's got to say.
We received the answer that, first of all, the Russian president will remain in his position. I would like to remind everyone that at the beginning of the war, an American president named Biden, who we might still remember, ambled over to Warsaw and gave a speech. Now, for the sake of credibility, I'll say it in English, but it sounded like this. Putin must fail, which means that Putin must be brought down. Not that we defeat him or go to war, but that he must fail. The Americans openly declared that they want to establish a different political regime in Russia. This led to the current situation where the European Union is financing the war. Russia is also financing the war. There is a funding race going on between the two of us in which at the moment the Russians are ahead. This situation weakens them while we are stumbling into it. Ukraine is being divided up. The question was, what will happen to Ukraine? We talked about this a year ago. Today, if we look at the developments and understand with a cool head what is happening there, we have to say that Ukraine is being divided up right now. Before the war, Ukraine's situation was very clear. It existed as a buffer state in which the Russians had 50% influence and the West had the other 50%. There were occasional debates about this. One government would come, another would go, but no one questioned the fact that Ukraine was a territory situated between the West and Russia, a buffer state, and everyone felt safe as long as the Russians and the West each had roughly 50% influence. This was the situation up until the war. As a result of the war, this balance was disrupted. Exactly how it happened could be the topic of another lecture. The point is that this balance was broken. Today, Europeans elegantly talk about security guarantees, but in reality, these security guarantees mean the partition of Ukraine. The first step has already been taken because the West has accepted the existence of a Russian zone. The only debate is whether, beyond Crimea, there will be 2, 4, 5, or 6 regions. But there is no longer any discussion about whether it should exist at all. A Russian zone has already been established, which contains about 20% of Ukraine. This is already in the past. There is hardly any debate about it anymore. The debate is about how many kilometers from the border of the Russian zone a demilitarized zone should be created. 40 kilometers? 50, 100, 200? We don't know. This is ongoing right now. This will be the second zone. The result of the division of Ukraine will be a Russian zone, a demilitarized zone, and finally a Western zone, about the outlines and conditions of which we cannot say anything for certain yet, but we can see that Ukraine is transforming into a territory consisting of 3 zones. The leaders of the European Union believe that the most marketable, or at least the most easily acceptable goal in Western Europe for joint indebtedness, one for which it is possible to take on massive amounts of debt, is the Ukrainian war itself, or rather its security. Or they want to create massive indebtedness for all of us under this pretext. In our view as Hungarians, and in my opinion, this is definitely a mistake. Because Ukraine's membership in the European Union, which is the inevitable consequence of this joint indebtedness, since we are letting the Ukrainians in, means that we don't have the money to help the Ukrainians catch up to the EU average. To do that, we have to take out loans. So they think that Ukrainian membership, the war and Ukrainian membership will create joint debt. But in reality, Ukrainian membership will drag the European Union into the war, because we can't imagine a situation where the EU has member states and one of those member states is attacked from outside or gets into a border conflict like what is happening now on the Russian-Ukrainian border. It's impossible that in such a situation, the other EU member states would not rush to help the one that is under military attack. However, whether Ukraine is under military attack, whether Ukraine is in conflict with Russia, will never be decided by Ukraine, but always by Russia. And then we are already in the war. So, in my opinion, the Europeans are mistaken. Ukraine's EU membership, whether indirectly or directly, will inevitably drag us into the war. On top of that, we don't even have any money. I just mentioned the numbers, how the performance of the Union has declined. We don't even have enough money to restore our own competitiveness. And then the money we do have, we want to send to Ukraine. So we are ruining the European Union economically as well. In reality, Europe shouldn't be knocking on doors in Washington, but should go to Moscow and conclude a European Union-Russia security agreement, not just about Ukraine, but a European Union-Russia security agreement, which would obviously include that Ukraine will not become a member of either NATO or the European Union. But it could include, and I think Hungary could support this, a strategic cooperation agreement between Ukraine and the European Union. We don't want to throw the Ukrainians out into nothing. We are not anti-Ukrainian. The European Union cannot open up towards China and India as long as the war continues, because the war is the point of reference. Accusing China and India of buying Russian energy and thereby financing the war. This excludes the possibility of concluding an economic cooperation agreement with these countries at the same time. So in summary, what I want to say is that continuing the war is a losing European strategy.
There we are. MPI made his mic open. It's not open now. Yeah, so there we are. There's Viktor Orban, who they would like to shift sideways. And until they can, they can't invite, literally they cannot invite, of course, Ukraine to join. And they very much would like Ukraine to join. Quite why they would want that, I don't know, but there we go. Of course, if they do that, it gets them one step closer to being in NATO, which is what nobody, I would have thought, in the world actually wants. We've got hands up. We've got Nillis and Sean Murphy. Nillis.
Well, the European Union being globalists, and that includes the Union parties in the UK for this as well. They want debt because the debt is what takes money out of the population and puts it into the hands of the elite. For example, Charles Schwab, he very famously said, "You'll own nothing and be happy," and that debt is going to mean that we own nothing. We can see that, with the farmers. They say that in 2 generations there won't be family farms anymore because of this very high death duty. Yes. And the same is starting to happen with the housing market.
Yeah, and go on, buddy.
If we look at the great events of what's happened in the last 20 years, be it the forever wars, the COVID, the Green Revolution, it's all put money into the hands of a small elite and taken that money out of the general circulation from the ordinary people. I think that globally, COVID took $3.5 trillion dollars and put it into the hands of the global elite from the normal people. And this is their process, and so they want the war with Ukraine. For example, the Federal Reserve was created just before just before the First World War, and it was created to make America fall into debt, and it's been very successful for that. I keep on saying this, but the UK is paying the central banks £9 billion in interest every month, and the Americans are paying the Federal Reserve, I think it's £90 billion every month, or $1 trillion every year. Anyway, I don't know how quite that works, but it's a lot of money, and it's the way that they operate. And we've also got to, I keep on saying this as well, but this money has been produced from nothing.
It has. Yeah, it's made
Backed
up
by gold.
out of thin air. Absolutely right. Sean Murphy.
Well, Warren, I think that the EU are desperate to get Ukraine to join the EU because of any minerals that are actually left in the western part of Ukraine.
Hi there.
And the EU
Hey,
are
I woke up. I
desperate.
gotta be doing.
Yeah, go on. Sorry, Sean.
The EU are absolutely desperate to get their hands on those mineral rights, and the only way they feel they can do it is to have Ukraine as part of the EU, which will give them first dibs. Oh, well, you're part of the EU. We allowed you in. You should at least honour the agreement with us that we get first dibs on the mineral rights. And I think that's what it's all about. That's why they want Ukraine in the EU to get their hands on any minerals.
Yeah, and of course they were very much like to do that. There is a bit of a problem, and there's a rift between Merz and von der Leyen, and of course Merz was turning around and saying she should be the leader of Germany or the prime minister of Germany. Obviously, they're holding on to make Macron the head of the EU at a later date. And if you don't believe me, just watch this space. But just to get back to what we were saying about Orban, Orban's bid to stop Ukraine joining the EU. Now, people may disagree with Orban, but they want to preserve the ability to block other membership bids they see as problematic. So Orban has some friends here because the Bulgarians want to be able to block the Macedonians. The Croats want to be able to keep the Serbs out. Greece and Cyprus don't want Turkey to come any closer to the EU. Greece also want to stop Albania's bid. And for this reason, they're reluctant to change the current rules that requires unanimous consent before formal accession can, of course, be agreed. And, of course, that is what they're trying to do, to try and circumnavigate the fact that Hungary and Serbia are turning around and going, no, we're not really into this. We don't want a bar of this. We're going to stop right there. And, of course, the Ukraine issue has caused this rift between Merz and von der Leyen. Relations between the two have been strained over their differing approaches to the Ukraine issue. The European Commission chief, von der Leyen, has taken a more Brussels-orientated approach, while Merz opposes EU federalisation and wants to return power to national governments. He's also publicly criticised von der Leyen on issues related to the EU budget, environment, defence and trade. So all is not, shall we say, well in the garden of wisdom, as people would say, which is quite crazy, isn't it? And of course, they're going to get more and more upset about that as they go along. And of course, the person that I did put up on the screen there is Augustine Carstens, of course, the big chubby fellow. Now, he takes a great deal of control over all the banking systems and the banks. So do be aware of exactly what that guy does, because he's a very, very powerful figure when it comes to banking. Let's have a little look at the next thing that is a bit of a thing. This is something quite strange and quite, should we say, crazy? I think it's fairly crazy. We've got the Kaka Callis, or Kaya Callis, they call her. I think they should change her name to Kaka because of the amount of verbal diarrhea that comes out of her mouth every time she opens it. Let's have a listen.
But if we don't take those assets into account, then it's on our taxpayers, that's for sure.
So basically what she's talking about is taking those assets and being able to use them. Now, this, for me, is all a con. I've said this time and time again. They've already had these assets. They've already frozen them. They've pinched them and they've spent them. Anybody who thinks that out of 330 billion, they've already loaned 120 million out of that. And of course, anybody who thinks that that's the amount of interest they can get out of those is probably talking complete nonsense. Okay. Anybody that thinks that's the case and everything has been absolutely fine, not a problem at all. I'm afraid you're talking, it is one of those things where you need to have a word with yourself. Something else that has happened as well is good old Stoltenberg has reared his head again. remember him. He was the former head of NATO before Mark Rutte.
Що багато країн із союзників НАТО посилили підтримку хоробрих українців. Як міністр оборони знаю, мільярд Україні чи обороні – це мільярд менше.
Now, the reason I'm putting that up in that language is because, how can I put it? Stolten has come out with, he was addressing his own people, but afterwards he cleared it up in English.
At this point in time, should NATO formally commit to Ukraine's membership post-war, or does strategic ambiguity still serve a purpose?
My opinion is that we should still commit to Ukraine's membership. I believe that the space in between NATO and Russia is kind of smaller and smaller. Before 2022, we thought it was possible to be somewhere in between, like Georgia, Ukraine, and these other countries. I think what we have seen is that either you are covered by NATO security guarantees or you're in a very dangerous place. And therefore, I believe we should still stand by our commitment we made in 2008.
So there we go. That is literally the commitment from 2008. You heard his words there. And of course, all sorts of nonsense went on in 2008 that we'll get deeper into at a later date. But the problem that we have, don't we, and we will keep having, is that these people are 100% ready to go and throw Ukraine under the bus. And they're also ready now to throw Moldova under the bus. It is one of the next things in there. And everybody's going, no, it can't possibly happen. It will. This was a discovery. Now, if you've got a weak constitution, the Russians have just taken over a place called Khabarovsk. Which is, we'll go through that in a second, but it's on the way. Let's have a look on the way to Seversk. But let's have a little look at this. Now, if you're a squeamish or of a squeamish disposition, because one of the residents did not want to go with them and wanted to wait behind for the Russians, they did this.
Гражданский замученный. Мужчина.
So they tied up a civilian. They shot him after they had broken his legs. He was found to have, this civilian was found to have 22 multiple fractures. And of course, it's only a very, very young man as well. Now, this has been happening a lot, and nobody is talking about the war crimes that these people are committing. And this is why I keep saying to people, there is going to be no peace deal, because every single time there has been a peace deal, they have turned around and they've gone, I'm not happy about this, not happy about that. We don't want to make a peace deal and this, that, and the other. And the Ukrainians will break it. They hate the ethnic Russians in the East, okay? They hate them with a passion. And even if there could be 42 million peace deals done between now and when this war gets finally solved. The Ukrainians will break it. Those Ukrainians, the neo-Nazi Ukrainians, will break it because they hate the ethnic Russians. They want them gone from the land of Ukraine. And they will go in and they will start killing again, no matter how many peace deals you do. And Putin is completely right. Until you denazify Ukraine, and I'm not quite sure how you achieve that, then very simply, this war will just keep going on and on and on. This is an ethnic cleansing. This isn't just war crimes for the sake of it. This is to get every Russian-speaking person out of Ukraine. Nilis.
Yeah, thanks for showing us that Warren, because those sort of things must be going on a daily basis, probably multiple times. If we look at what happened in Bushehr, the people got massacred there for accepting Russian bread, and you showed us that Eva Bartlett clip where she was talking to some children and their mother who'd gone into in Russia. Yeah. And we know that many of those families would never speak to the cameras because they would be worried about retaliation to their families who are still in Ukraine. And we've also got to remember the child trafficking. We've got to remember the medical experimentations that are going on in these biolabs with real people and children, and we've all got to remember the baby farms where women are captured and forced to have babies for the Western market.
Yeah, and let's not forget all the children in the Donbass that the Ukrainians have supposedly taken to safety. 9,000 in the Donbass alone, and they've all just suddenly disappeared. Good points, well made. Thank you, Nicholas. Sean Murphy.
Well, Warren, I think the Russians are going to really have to go all out on this denazification, and basically that's going to mean taking pretty much the whole of Ukraine, because what's going to happen is these Nazis are just going to go to ground and take their uniforms off, and then they're going to commit their atrocities from like a guerrilla war scenario or terrorist acts. If the Russians don't get rid of them and kill them, that's all there is. And I think that's going to be the only solution, is that to actually, sadly, kill every Nazi Ukrainian that they come across. That's the only way they're going to do it. I don't see any other option. Your mic's off, Warren.
I do apologise. Yeah, the further west you go, the more Nazified Ukraine becomes. Lvov is absolutely full of them. Nicholas.
Well, yeah, we've also got to remember that people like McCain, Biden, they put billions into Ukraine to produce this Nazism. There's a picture of from Biden and McCain, saying to the whole room full of Nazis, we'll give you everything you want to defeat Russia. This is long before even the Maidan. And some people say 15 billion. Some people say even more. Were put into reignite Nazis. It's a bit like the Nazi Party itself. It wouldn't have existed unless billions of pounds had been put into it.
No, you're absolutely right. It takes money to overthrow the government. So one of those. You certainly won't do it as a poor person. Thank you very much for that. Have a look at this. Now, there isn't much audio with this, but very simply what we've got is a Russian drone. There's a Russian there. He is fighting with a Ukrainian, one-to-one battle, and he runs out of bullets. So he actually uses his rifle as a club to beat the Ukrainian to death with. This is battle at its most savage. As you can see, the struggle is going on there between the Ukrainian. It is literally life or death. If anybody out there is thinking it'd be a really, really good idea, or it would be a cracking idea to go off and fight in this war, please think again if you're thinking of going as a mercenary, because this is not going to end well for you if you do go there. The brutality of this war is quite incredible, and each side is well aware of what's at stake. Okay, and you're absolutely right, Eric. It is not Call of Duty. All right, and the people who are pushing Ukraine to sacrifice their lives like this and keep pushing for a war that is clearly lost are deranged. And when you hear any of these people coming out with this sort of thing, just remind them of what's at stake. And this is just a reminder that there are normal, ordinary people. As you can see there, the Ukrainian is literally very much on his last legs there.